Hello and welcome to our special broadcast on WION World is One. My name is Priyanka Sharma and today we will be focusing on Jammu and Kashmir. Nearly 2 years after Jammu and Kashmir became a union territory, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, is holding a special meeting with all party leaders to discuss the road ahead. A major outreach by the Indian Prime Minister towards addressing the concerns of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. In total, 14 leaders from Jammu and Kashmir have been invited to the special meeting, which includes 4 former Chief Ministers of Jammu and Kashmir, Union Home Minister Amit Shah and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. As the leaders sit down to chart out a new roadmap, we bring you stories from the ground, showcasing tales of resilience and enterprise in the face of challenges. This is our special broadcast, A Valley of Hope. Whenever one thinks of Kashmir, the first thought is a getaway, a dream tourist destination. Tourism is the backbone of the region and it has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now the Union Territory's Tourism Department, along with health officials, has launched a mission to vaccinate each and every individual related to this industry. Idris Loan brings us this next ground report. Take a look.
In the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, special vaccination drives are being held for the people whose livelihoods depend on tourism. Their numbers constitute around 80% in the city, going up to 90% in hill stations like Gulmarg and Pahogam.
We are expecting as the situation improves and things come to normal, cases are coming down, and we expect, in the near future there will be certainly a revival of the tourism sector again. And for that, in order to see that there is a successful tourism season again, we have already prepared an action plan which includes 100% mass vaccination of our stakeholders and the staff, and similarly the capacity building, where we will be giving a lot of training, a lot of inputs to our stakeholders, be it hoteliers, be it poniwalas, be it shikarawalas, be it houseboat owners, with regard to the COVID protocols and the way we carry forward the tourism season successfully.
Stakeholders in the valley's tourism sector say that they're extremely happy about getting jabbed. They feel that the vaccination drive will prove once and for all that Kashmir is safe to travel.
Fortunately, the wave of COVID it hit again, and all the stakeholders, all the segment, all the sectors are under lockdown. So it hit us badly. So it was we can say it was unfortunate and bad luck for this sector. So we are in coming time. We hope that slowly it may pick up. It may pick up. Like we had, department has done a very good. They have taken a very good initiative, like sector tourism, backward tourism. They were involved in it for this vaccination drive. Because every tourism player has to go through this drive and has to vaccinate themselves. Because you will feel safe and secure. The tourists who are intended to come here in coming time, they might think that we are going to some places where people are ready to welcome us.
Kashmir's tour guide, Shikar rowers and hoteliers say that they can't wait for the curbs to be lifted so that they can welcome tourists once again in the valley.
At a time when travellers across the world are being asked for their vaccination certificates, Kashmir Tourism Department is making sure that all the stakeholders in Kashmir are vaccinated before they throw open the industry. With video journalist Feroz, Idris Loan for WION World is One.
For a better insight into the ground reality, we have Idris Loan now joining us live from Srinagar. Idris, thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the steady rise in vaccination. Please tell us, how has the administration managed to overcome the challenges of vaccine skepticism and the last mile delivery problem in Kashmir?
When it comes to vaccination, there's a good response from the people in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, while the rest of the country, when it was at 32%, the rating that at which vaccination was going in Kashmir region was at 62%, which was way ahead than other parts of the country. We've seen after the second wave especially that people are lining up outside vaccination centres across the Union Territory in different districts of Jammu and Kashmir. We've also seen that in many age groups, vaccination has been completed, especially in areas like South Kashmir and in some districts of Jammu. We've seen that Districts like Gandarbal, Shupian, Pulwama, Samba were among the first districts in the country which were fully vaccinated, and the process is still going on for the people below 45 years of age. So the response of people towards vaccination has been good, and that is one of the reasons that the administration has been able to vaccinate as many people. In the coming days, the government is making sure the remotest villages, especially villages close to line of control where there is no access of road, but the health department workers are moving on foot and going to these areas to do their best to vaccinate people in these areas. There is definitely in some areas there are some issues that these health workers face because some people don't want to get vaccinated, but the number, if we compare it, is very less, and that's really a good news for the health department, because people are ready to get vaccinated in majority in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. Now, Idris, the Indian Army, of course, played a key role in assisting the local administration during the COVID-induced lockdowns, especially in terms of hospital facilities and education for children. What can you tell us about the role of the Indian Army in the valley?
There's tremendous work that Army has done in response to COVID, if we say, in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. We've seen and reported also that Army has set up hospitals in various districts of Jammu and Kashmir. If we talk about Kashmir Valley, we saw the first hospital that Army came up with was a 200-bedded facility in Srinagar's Rangret area, which was first of its kind, and also the patients were referred by the Civil Administration and Health Department from different district hospitals to that hospital. After that, we also saw a hospital being established in Uri district, which is very close to line of control, and Army wanted to come to the rescue of civil administration there, as there was a huge load of patients coming to the civil hospitals. So Army had established a 14-bedded hospital in that area as well. After that, we saw the third hospital, which was a 50-bedded hospital, which was started by the Indian Army in Bibi Cant area of Srinagar. So they've come up with these COVID facility centers to help and rescue the civil administration in different districts. We've also seen the Army not only helping with these COVID facility centers, but also in terms of helping restoring the defunct oxygen plants. We've filed a report on that also. There was an oxygen plant in Srinagar's Rangret area which was defunct from last 7 years. Army brought in all the machinery to restore that oxygen plant so that oxygen supply could be sent to the main tertiary hospitals of Srinagar. So they've done a tremendous job when it comes to COVID response in the last, especially during the second wave of COVID in this Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right, Idris, thanks for those inputs. Stay with us on this broadcast, on this special broadcast. We'll come back to you for some more stories from the valley. Now, with the vaccination drive moving ahead in full swing in the valley and with cases coming down, the tourism industry is slowly opening up. Tourist arrivals have begun and the stakeholders are hoping for good business this season. Take a look.
Kashmir's most sought-after and picturesque hill stations of Gulmarg, Pahalgam and Sonmarg have once again opened to tourists with full COVID protocols. In Srinagar too, the hotels and houseboats are buzzing with activity after a long gap. Tourists could be seen enjoying the famous shikara rides around the Dal Lake in Srinagar. In fact, huge discounts are being offered to lure in more and more tourists.
Because last lockdown चल रहा है last 1 year से.
Because of the lockdown since last 1 year, it has affected the business and we got a lot of cheap deals. 5-star hotels are giving 50% off. It's all because everything was shut.
Hotels में भी.
The opening, though, has been a cautious one, with most tourist spots following strict COVID protocols. The government is also taking adequate measures to make sure that tourist attractions do not face a sudden influx of tourists.
Kashmir mein overall experience was nice.
It was a very nice experience, but gardens like Tulips and Shalimar are not open yet. If people start coming, I'm sure they will open everything. And we have noticed that there are very few COVID cases, and I think the government should open the place now.
अभी तक लॉकडाउन के अंदर है.
All the tourists arriving in the valley have to provide their vaccination certificates as well as their test results of COVID-19.
So we start journey from Jaipur in like last 2 to 3 days ago. So we had a RT-PCR test and antigen test and all the permission e-pass.
Tourism is one of the mainstays of Kashmir's economy, and the gradual opening has come as a huge relief for the locals, who largely depend on the tourism industry.
By God's grace, things are improving, but we have to win the war against the pandemic. We appeal to tourists to come here after being vaccinated. We won't allow them to take shikara rides without being vaccinated. We check the certificates first and then take them around. We ourselves got vaccinated. Tourists should come here and we are hopeful they will. We have to keep our distance, wash ourselves and make sure to follow all COVID protocols.
With the decrease in COVID cases in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, tourism industry is finally opening its door for tourists. They expect that within the next few weeks there would be a revival of tourism in Kashmir Valley.
With the decrease in COVID cases across the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, Kashmir's tourism industry is finally opening its doors for tourists. Kashmir tourism stakeholders are expecting that within next few weeks there would be revival of tourism in Kashmir Valley. With video journalist Firoz, Idris Sloan for WION World is One.
Let's now shift our focus to the concerns of the people. One of the major concerns for the valley's people is this national highway between Jammu and Kashmir, which mostly remains shut due to heavy snowfall and landslides. In the winter season, that is. Essential commodities from the rest of the country often get stuck in transit for days, especially during snowfall. Now a new all-weather tunnel is ready and will be open to the public within days. Our next report tells you more.
This 8.5-kilometer long tunnel bypasses the most difficult terrain on the national highway. Earlier, the same 16.5-kilometer stretch would get shut during the winters after landslides and snowfall. It took the government 10 long years to make this tunnel, as its construction efforts often ran into inclement weather.
It took around more than 9 years now. So as of now, we are at a stage of final. We are in the final stage now, and expecting within 1 or 2 weeks our testing commissioning will be completed. Soon after that, a good news will come out to the public. So, tunneling job is a difficult job. You cannot predict what is inside the tunnel. Once you start the excavation, that means what is the rock strata, what kind of rock is inside, whether it's a loose rock or hard rock. So every step you need to be careful. So on those basis only, you can say you can imagine the tunneling process is a time-consuming job. But Alhamdulillah, we have completed this job, and we are now very happy that we have achieved our goal, and we are in a position to inaugurate it.
The government says it will benefit people in many ways. It will not only save time, but will be open all through the year.
Traffic movement, there will be no issue at all, because earlier, if you see the jetty during the winter season and snowfall, there are so many avalanche zones in that area, and snow clearance also takes time. So this tunnel is all weather. There will be no such difficulty of snow clearance and all. So it will be open throughout the year.
The entire tunnel has been made on the build, operate and transfer-based system. It is equipped with an exhaust system to expel gas and bring in fresh air. It has 126 jet fans, 234 CCTV modern cameras, and a fire-fighting system installed. The locals of the area say they are relieved, since they had no other routes to take during the winters and had to face immense problems, especially while shifting sick people to hospitals or taking essential commodities to other places.
This tunnel will benefit us a lot. We were cut off from Kashmir during the winters. The sick would not reach the hospital, the students couldn't reach exam centers. Even dead bodies had to wait.
If there was a delivery of a pregnant woman, we had no way to take her to the hospital. Now we can go to the hospital in half an hour.
With the opening of this tunnel, the people of Jammu and Kashmir will have a sigh of relief. This tunnel will not only cut down on the time, but it's an all-weather tunnel, which means even if it's snowing outside or there are landslides, the traffic on the national highway will not be halted anymore. With video journalist Feroz, Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Let's now again go across to our correspondent Idris Lone, who is joining us from Srinagar. Idris, tell us more about the central government's infrastructure push in the valley. How have things changed on ground in the past 2 years?
The Government of India has pushed for many developmental projects in the last 2 years. If we talk about projects related to electricity, making of new tunnels, there were a lot of projects which were delayed in the last few years but finally have been completed, and there are many new projects that have been taken up by the government in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, I filed a report on an all-weather tunnel which will be started in the coming few days, which will be inaugurated for people and they will have access to that all-weather tunnel. Kashmir used to be cut off from the rest of the country for days when it snows, especially in winters, and sometimes Kashmir would also run out of essential commodities due to the halt of traffic on the national highway. And now that problem would be taken care of by opening of this new tunnel, which is an 8.5 kilometer all-weather tunnel, which the project has been going on for the last 10 years, and finally the project has been completed and it will be thrown open to people in the coming few days. The second story that we filed was about electricity. The villages, especially in South Kashmir and North Kashmir remote areas, there was a village in Shupian district of South Kashmir which got electricity for the first time in 70 years. It's after independence for the first time that village was provided with electricity. There are so many stories like that across Kashmir in the remote areas where finally electricity has been provided to the people living in these areas. The third most important point is about farmers. The horticulture is one of the major backbone for economy of Jammu and Kashmir, and this time what the government has done, we also filed a report on that. They've signed an MOU with the airline services, wherein they will be taking the produce of the farmers, especially starting with cherry farming of this, which is the first crop of the season. They'll be taking that produce from the farmers and sending it across different parts of the country. A lot of developmental projects that have been taken by the government in the last 2 years in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right, Idris, thank you so much for those inputs. We'll come back to you in just a moment. We'd like to talk about the aspirations of the young people in Kashmir. But first, let's talk about art. Artists in the Kashmir Valley have long struggled for a gallery to showcase their work. There were no physical art galleries in the valley, but now, for the first time ever, these artists will have a public space to showcase their work. Take a look at our next report.
Kashmir has a rich tradition of artisan culture, intricate wood carvings, colourful papier-mâché, and exquisite cashmere scarves. The Himalayan valley is renowned for its fine handicraft. A cohort of Kashmiri artists and artisans, for them art is a medium of expression, resilience and resistance. The Kashmir valley is known for its centuries-old exquisite art. Until now, the artists have always had to struggle when it comes to showcasing their work, because there are no art galleries where they can display their works. But now, for the first time ever, these local Kashmiri artists will be able to put up their work on display in public spaces for the world to see. They can show off their talent on the walls, flyovers and even the subways, as part of the smart city plan of the Indian government.
We are thankful that we are able to work on these walls. There is so much work for people outside the UT, but here artists have no work. We have made shawls, houseboats, artisans, ski players, temples and shikaras in these spaces. I'm extremely happy about it. And when people stop while we are working here to take pictures and videos of our work, it feels very good. Art is God's gift and it's a talent you are born with.
The paintings on the walls in the capital city of Srinagar depict the rich culture of the valley, from the famous hill stations of Kashmir to the artisans at work, temples, houseboats and shikaras. All of these have been painted as embodiments of a rich heritage preserved for decades.
I am happy about the fact that we have been given space to showcase our talent. We are making paintings and people are appreciating it. They are happy to see our work. Those who are artists should keep painting and never give up. Never lose heart. This requires a lot of patience. It's a God's gift, and many who studied with me never became anything, but I did because I wanted to. Although there are no galleries here, there is no scope. Even Ladakh has a gallery, but we don't. Students who study art also have nowhere to showcase their work. Some of them become painters, and a friend of mine who was a gold medalist is working as a mason as there was no scope and career for artists. I think it's scandalous. We absolutely cannot allow this. There has to be real crackdown on this.
For years, the art and crafts industry in Kashmir has remained in shambles. It has been a land of dispute for decades. There has been a lack of collaborative spaces for artists to get together and exhibit their work. The region's artists hope that the spark doesn't get lost among Kashmir's youth.
The purpose of these paintings and artwork across the Srinagar city is not only for the beautification of the area, but also creating a space for the local artists to showcase their talent. With video journalist Feroz, Idris Loan for WION World is One.
Coming back now to our correspondent Idris Loan from Srinagar. Idris, the youth in Kashmir is now exploring professions beyond traditional tourism and craft-related avenues. So what are the aspirations of the young Kashmiris that you have found during your interactions?
It's true, a lot of Kashmiris are making different career choices now, although tourism and handicraft is one of the major industries in Kashmir Valley and a lot of population is associated with it. But recently we saw that youngsters are making different career choices. We filed a report also on one of the such stories, which was about music industry of Kashmir. It was completely shattered in the last 30 years. There was no music album released, nothing on the music scene in Kashmir Valley. But now what we are seeing that young musicians in the valley are finally trying to revive the industry. We saw how youngsters are not only singing, but they are also reviving the instruments that used to be there in the olden days of Kashmir, like rabab. We filed a story on that also. So there have been, youngsters have been making these different career choices and they are doing their best to revive music industry as such. And their other career choice that we've seen a lot of youngsters are taking up is sports. A lot of men and women both have taken sports as their career. We've seen a lot of cricketers who played national, international matches are from Kashmir, and we've also seen a lot of women players, especially women sports persons from different parts of Kashmir, playing martial arts, playing taekwondo and different sports. And also traveling across the whole world while winning medals in these categories. So different career choices definitely people in the valley, especially the youngsters, are taking up, and it's good to see that people are moving away from which was an adopted career option in Kashmir, which was doctor, engineer, or you would relate yourself with tourism because it's one of the biggest industry. But we are seeing that there are finally changes that young people are making in the valley.
Thanks, Idris, for all those inputs and for joining us on this special broadcast. Now, let's tell our viewers about the famous cherries of the valley. Cherries have had a bumper harvest this year in India's Kashmir Valley, so much so that the government has decided to airlift the excess produce from the Kashmir Valley to various parts of the country. This move not only means better business for the territory's farmers, but also ensures that the excess produce doesn't end up in the bin. Our next report gets you more details.
The Kashmiri cherries are famous across the world and there is a high demand for them. The farmers say they will benefit if the government helps them to sell the produce or market it. As due to COVID, they had to incur huge losses last year.
The produce is good and the market is good. Our whole produce was wasted last year, but this year it's been good. And traffic is moving. If the government takes our produce, it will benefit farmers a lot.
The government has tied up with a private airline to lift the produce from Kashmir and send it across various cities of the country. With this, farmers expect that the government will come to their help and other crops as well.
This year, our government has earmarked a separate budget for cherry transportation. We have done an MOU with Go Airlines recently, and we have also taken up with our government for freight subsidy. Normally our production is near about 14,000 metric tons or more, but we are expecting higher side this year because crop is nice this year, production is high, and also there is little attack of disease.
The produce this year is good, but the market should retain. If we are able to send it across, we will be benefited. Government is saying we will take the produce and sell it. We are getting good rates.
Apple, almond and walnut growers hope that the government will come up with some scheme for them too.
With a bumper crop this year, the cherry farmers in Kashmir Valley are extremely happy. The government has also come to their rescue by arranging special flights to take their produce from Kashmir Valley to different parts of the country. With video journalist Feroz, Idris Lone for WION World is One.
And with that, it's a wrap on our special broadcast, Valley of Hope. Stay tuned to WION. Global news updates continue on the other side. Thanks for watching.